Hi, everyone. So I posted an announcement that has some reminders and some resources in it. And I just want to make a quick video of highlighting where some of resources are located and how to use them as you work on the final draft of your personal essay. So the first thing I want to make sure that everyone is using is the template. I've included it in the new announcement. It's also in the week 3 announcement, and it looks like this. I recommend using this template in your actual essay because that way you make sure that you're including the correct formatting, and you also have the reference ready for you at the bottom. So you can see that if you follow along with this, you would just need to change the title and put in your own information, but this is exactly how it should look on the page, including the page numbers at the top. And then there's instructions there for starting the paper again. And then at the bottom, you can see that the reference is already written for you for this particular article. So I really recommend using this template because it's right there for you. So if you haven't already, please make sure that yours looks exactly like this with your essay in the middle. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the purpose of the assignment. Because one of the overall things that I'm seeing again and again in the drafts is that some of you are doing a great job telling a personal narrative about a time that you employed critical thinking. And some of you are doing a great job talking about critical thinking, but you have to make sure that you're putting both of those experiences together. So in this essay, you need to be talking about specific personal experiences as they relate to the characteristics of a critical thinker that are mentioned in the Lumen article. So just talking about a time that you used logic is good, but you need to connect those instances to specific things that you can pull out and quote from the article. So for example, and I'm just going to pull up the article. I have it up here somewhere. There it is. If you're talking about a time that you used critical thinking, you can quote that you used clear, reasonable, reflective thinking. You can say that you were doing more than simply memorizing facts. You can give an example of how you were not blindly accepting what you heard or read. You could tie in how your personal experience specifically made sure that you were looking at other sides of the story, or that you were seeking knowledge, clarification, or new solutions. So down here in this section. So you want to talk about a personal experience and you want to tie it to the Lumen article. Some of you have written more of an essay that just goes over like what this article is saying about critical thinking without enough personal detail. You need that element too. It doesn't need to be a super fancy essay, but what it does need to do is talk about a time that you used, or following the other prompt, didn't use critical thinking in a specific scenario and what kind of critical thinking characteristic that was specifically from the article. Some of you have written it so that you're writing like maybe 3 different paragraphs of different places you use critical thinking. So you might be saying like, I use it at home, I used it at work one time, and I used it while with my family. That's fine too, but make sure each one of those examples has a specific time that you used critical thinking and identifies the specific skill you use. So if you're talking about using critical thinking with your family, and you say something in your topic sentence like, I use critical thinking when I was with my family, then give an example of when I was put in charge of the family reunion and everyone was just suggesting different games and no one knew what to do. I decided that I was going to, and everybody was getting upset, I decided that I was going to come up with a new solution for how we could organize the games. That's a silly example, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, you want a specific example and specific characteristics from the article. That's one reason that you're supposed to set up in the introduction an introduction to the article and an explanation of your personal experience. So another thing I want you to make sure that you're following is the example that I gave y'all. And this is in the announcement. So I'm just going to go back to the announcements. That you're using this formula to create your introductory paragraph. This is literally what I want you to write. You see these little bullet points here? This is for sentences. So, and I break it down by sentence. The first sentence or two should be a hook. If you're not sure what that is, there's a link to an article to read about it. The next sentence should have a background explaining your personal scenario. The next sentence needs to introduce the Lumen article, and the last sentence needs to be your thesis statement. So right from the introduction, you're seeing how you have a personal scenario of your own plus an introduction of the Lumen article, because the whole point is to synthesize the ideas from the Lumen article into your experience. So the paper I was showing you a second ago is a sample paper that I'm attaching into the announcement that I'm posting this video in. And that particular sample really shows an example of how I talk about a personal experience, and I also refer to the Lumen article. Another thing that you can see throughout it are examples of quotations. So you see here, I have a long quotation followed by a citation. Super important. Y'all should have quotes and citations throughout, in-text citations throughout. This construction is always going to be the same, the author. There isn't a year listed, so we're going to write in period, D period for that. And then this quote appears in paragraph 6. So you can see that I have the long quotes, and there are quotations in every one of my body paragraphs. Remember when I had my outline, I set it up so that I had the introduction and then I had a background explaining my scenario, and there's no citation in there. But for every other body paragraph, when I'm actually doing the comparing and the digging into how my experience relates to critical thinking, I have specific quotes from the article. And I have the long quotes, but I also have shorter quotes right here. You don't need to quote entire sentences. You can just pull out the ideas, like that good critical thinkers are open to changing their mind, or that good critical thinkers look at new solutions. This is just a phrase from the article, but it is tying my experience back to the article. And the last thing I want to talk about is I want y'all to make sure that you are, because I noticed a lot of sentence fragments and run-ons. Those were the two biggest errors that I saw consistently. So I really want to encourage everyone to use Grammarly. If you don't have Grammarly already, get it, because watch what happens when you Google Grammarly. Let's see, Grammarly sentence fragments. It gives you articles about it, or maybe it was even might have just been Grammarly run-on sentences. But even if you just Google Grammarly and you set it up, it's free. I think I have Grammarly already, but I think it's on a different account. But you can go through here and try it for free. And there's even an option for you to put your paper into Grammarly. So it's not just for attaching to specifically to your browser and doing grammar checks that way. There's also a function on it when you sign up for it where you can put your whole paper into Grammarly and have it check it, and it will give you suggestions to fix sentence fragments and run-ons. So if I mentioned that anywhere in your individual feedback, I highly recommend you do something like Grammarly to check for those mistakes. All right, so those are the things that I want y'all to do.